Greetings, welcome to the studio. I'm Harry Fricker. This evening we have our guest speaker, Emma Cunis, Dartmoor's daughter. So thank you for being here, thank you for joining us. This will be the last of the studio live stream this year. We'll be back next year with a novel program, with new initiatives and guest speakers. So, without further ado, over to Emma. Emma, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Harry. I'm well. It's been a long day out on the moor, but I'm delighted to be sitting in an armchair listening to you.
Excellent, that's great. So tell me, Dartmoor's daughter, where does the name, why Dartmoor's daughter? I think it's a great name, I love it.
Oh, well, thank you. Originally, it was Dartmoor's granddaughter.
Okay.
And it was a bit of an honouring, if you like, to my grandparents. My grandfather was a Dartmoor guide in the 1950s.
Right.
And I rather feel that we're all children of the land, sons and daughters of the land. So Dartmoor's daughter just seemed to flow quite well.
Absolutely, definitely. So, what would you like? How would you like to kick off today's conversation?
Well, there's all sorts of ways in which we could talk about Dartmoor.
Okay.
I know you've had a variety of conversations with wonderful photographers, and of course you're an amazing photographer yourself.
Thank you.
My great love on the moor is sharing with people the history, the archaeology, the myths and legends, what the wild foods. So I have a few slides which I can share with you if you're interested in my own.
I think that would be ideal. I think the important thing to say here is that your perspective is different from that of the photographers. However, there's an intersection there, because a lot of the ground that you cover intersects beautifully with the work that the three photographers here have actually been doing. So, shall we do a screen share? How does that sound? I'll just put you on. I'll just include you in one of the cameras here. If you give me a second.
While you're doing that, I should just say that I am no photographer. So my photographs are amateur snapshots.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Excellent. I'll just include you in a circle as well, a little bit bigger. And there you are. Excellent. Cool. So there we are. Yeah, fire away with the presentation. Great.
Well, thank you, Harry. I thought I'd start with a little bit of a personal journey as to why and what I love so much about the moor and why I feel so drawn to sharing it with others. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, we can see your slide. Yes, I can see you, and we can see your slide absolutely fine.
Lovely. So I was lucky enough to grow up being dragged up for walks, climbing up the tors, swimming in the rivers with my family when I was very young. We had some snapshots from the 70s, and we really had great fun as children exploring these wonderful places and going in particular to the places that my mother used to love walking. And of course she was brought up walking by her parents as well. This is Pestor. And no matter the weather, this is a beautiful snowy day, but actually we were dragged up come rain or shine. I remember lots of soggy picnics in the rain. And Mum used to take us to these places that she particularly loved. So I developed, I think, a love of not just the natural features, like the tors and the rivers, but also some of the prehistoric monuments as well, that she was particularly interested in. And I was very lucky that my grandmother was alive up until about 4 years ago.
Wow.
So when I returned back, sorry, did you say something?
Well, I said, wow.
So when I returned back to Devon, I'd had 20 years living away in the corporate world, working all over the world, and I had become very burnt out and very unwell, actually. So I returned back to Devon, and I spent a lot of time trying to recover my health, walking on the moor, and talking to my granny and hearing the stories of how it was for them setting up this guiding pony trekking business in the 50s. And after she died 4 years ago, I rediscovered all these incredible photo albums that belonged to her great-grandparents as well. So we've got all these family photographs from generations of different places around the moor, and rediscovering some of them myself. So that photograph in the top right-hand corner is my great-grandmother and my grandmother at Spinster's Rock in Bruce Baynton, and I went there just recently to look at it. This is another one on the left-hand side. Is my uncle as a young boy at Fernworthy, where there was where the reservoir was so low that this well had been uncovered. So when it was uncovered recently and the water was low enough, I went back to take a similar photograph of me in front of it. And the same with this bridge. This is all typically underwater at Fernworthy Reservoir, and it's wonderful to have these side-by-side comparisons through the decades. And then, again, really in the last few years, I not only have enjoyed just walking here and enjoying the feeling of peacefulness and solitude and beauty, but I started to become particularly interested in the history and the archaeology. My first degree was actually in history. So this is an example of a stone row, Assacombe Stone Row in Fernworthy. And in fact, Dartmoor has 60% of all the stone rows in the UK. So it's an extraordinary series of monuments that have been built here and across the UK and parts of Britain. And I started to become interested in the theories about why they were built. Same with the stone circles, mainly a similar era, possibly late Neolithic or early Bronze Age. The beautiful Fernworthy stone circle and Greyweather stone circle as well. Part of this has been restored. But I was starting to make special expeditions, if you like, to go and seek out these monuments and to learn more about them and read all the books that my grandfather wrote and people before him as well as after him as well, trying to find out as much as I could about the history and the archaeology and also the stories of these places. This is Scarl Stone Circle, and there's a lovely story. Well, it's not a lovely story actually, it's a story about the faithless wives of Chagford, and they have to do penance in a variety of ways by doing a long pilgrimage and including several of these sacred sites en route. But I think there's an older route to that story, which I'll come to in a moment. And also, not just thinking about the monuments that these people built and the purpose of them, but also their settlement areas. This is a ruined hut circle up above Chagford, and how might it have been to live up here thousands of years ago? What would their water source have been? How would they have built their homes? What did the community look like, and how did they operate together? What food did they hunt and gather and forage? And because of that, I've spent a lot of time also trying to learn about people's wild animals and medicine.
Can I just hold you there just for a moment? Oh. We've had a comment in from Chrissy. Let me put it up here. Chrissy, sorry, but we can't hear Emma very well. It's very scratchy, just to let you know. Chrissy, thank you for your comment. Really appreciate that. We were aware of that. That's why we were delayed a little bit trying to actually resolve this issue. But we are dealing with some sort of gremlin here, and we're not quite sure what it is. So I'm afraid you'll have to bear with us for the time being. Because we can't fix it actually. Maybe, can I ask you, Emma, if you could actually go to your system, audio, and put the volume of your audio up a bit, please. See if that makes things a little bit different. Put the output on sound, the output, put the output volume a little bit higher up.
Yes, it's as high as it'll go.
Oh yeah, okay, that's it. Yep, yep. Yes,
Shall I
folks.
try with the headphones? See if I
Yes,
can.
try with the headphones. Sorry about these gremlins, folks. My apologies.
Is that any better?
We can hear you more clearly now. That seems the scratching seems to have gone there,
Okay.
or it's gone lower at least. That's better. So, yeah. So in effect, how many generations do you go back to in Dartmoor then, your family, Emma, roughly?
Um, Immediate family, it would be 4 generations,
Wow.
but then it goes back through a cousin who were farmers here in Chadford and built one of the houses just down the road.
Right. That's amazing because I come from a mixed background. We've been all over the place. In the same period, I think every generation has actually moved, or every other generation has actually moved, and it's incredible. So I always find it amazing that people that can actually trace their roots back to one location. I'm always kind of amazed by that. We've got another comment here from Tressland. I switched to headphones that I don't usually use. I think it's helped a bit, but it's the background interference that is making it hard. Yeah, we don't know how to solve it, folks. We'll have to bear with this one, and my sincere apologies. I can't apologize enough. This is one of the gremlins we have to deal with today. But anyway, over to you, Emma.
Yes, so just to add that although I can trace the generations and the family back, we have also moved around, and I am a mongrel. I have lots of different inputs into
Another mongrel
so,
like me. There's two of us.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the screen.
Yeah. Folks, by the way, if you have any questions or any comments, please just send in your questions or your comments, and what we'll do is we'll weave them into our conversation as we progress. And once again, my apologies for the audio sound. We did a number of tests and it wasn't there, and then moments before we started going live, we got all this gremlins basically. So yeah, Emma, over to you.
Harry, I'm sorry, the presentation now seems to have...
Oh,
I've got a different screen in front of me.
okay. Because we can see your PDF, the PDF. We can see it fine.
Okay. Sorry, folks, bear with me a second.
Sure.
Figure out what's happened. I'll have to stop sharing and do it again. I'm sorry, I can't.
Before you stop sharing, can I just suggest, if you quit the PDF, quit your application, and then relaunch it, because is your PDF?
There it is.
There it is. Yeah, yeah. Okay, excellent. Yes. Sigh of relief.
So yes, I was mentioning how interested I became in the way that people lived, not just in looking at the monuments and their old settlements, but actually the way in which they lived. This is Ryder's Rings, which is a very extraordinary example of a Bronze Age settlement down near the Avon Reservoir, much bigger than Grimspound, for any of you that are interested.
Ah.
And as well as the monuments and the settlements that people built, I started to think about, well, what was here before we built stone monuments? If you look at other indigenous people around the world, they often consider sacred their natural features, so the rocks, the mountains, the springs, the caves, the rivers. So I started to really get to know the tors on Dartmoor, all their different shapes. Each one has a name, as you probably know, and usually the name will tell you the story of the place. So Haytor, for example, hay in the Dartmoor dialect means high, so it's high tor.
Right.
And,
Excellent.
and also there are lots of features in these granite tools that I think are really interesting, and I wonder how we might have experienced and interacted with these natural features thousands of years ago. This is a little cave up at Granite Tor Rocks near Hound Tor that more modern people anyway have inscribed with a spiral. And of course we get rock basins. This is the wonderful Tolman stone, which if you climb through it, the locals will tell you that you won't get rheumatism. Believe that if you will. And probably several of you will know these extraordinary features. This is Bauman's nose, who I don't have time to tell you all the stories, but of course he was turned to stone for upsetting the witches. This is Figgy Daniel as well. So these extraordinary shapes of tools created a long time ago. This is called the Druid's chair.
Wow.
And it must have been a very large Druid who sat in his chair.
Yes.
There were quite a few of us back then. And there are Logan Stones. Logan means to rock, so rocking stones. This is one up at Belston, which no longer rocks, sadly. But these are natural features that potentially were interacted with or used in some way by prehistoric man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's called a tor-covered cairn. And just in the distance there, there's our group of pack ponies. We were doing pack ponies. So this is up at Udborough Beacon. And there's just a few of these on Dartmoor, but it's a very particular kind of feature where a tor has been built around. So people have come along, probably late Neolithic, maybe early Bronze Age, and they've built a cairn around it. Originally thought to be a funerary monument, but there doesn't seem to be any remains found in these places, so potentially a different purpose, and I'm particularly intrigued by these.
Yes, can I just say, because I'm familiar with those on Bodmin Moor, where I've been doing a lot of photography there, particularly by Stowe's Hill next to the cheese ring. There's the enclosure there, and that particular enclosure has a teardrop shape.
Uh-huh.
So although some authors say that this is a kind of defensive, a sort of defensive wall, I think it's more along the lines of what you said. I think it's more about ritual.
Yes.
And somehow it's a homage. It's some sort of ritual and ceremonial rather than the defensive. There could have been some sort of defensive thing but the teardrop isn't really a defensive kind of position. I think that teardrop has more to do with a ritualistic sort of shape. Now, what kind of ritual I couldn't say. We don't know. That's lost in history. But yeah, I would agree with you that these hilltops, the view that they have, the fact that you're literally closer to the maker, to the Great Spirit, I think they would have definitely been ritualistic. I get the same feeling. Oh. We've lost our speaker. Oh dear me. This is a... Bear with me, folks. It seems that we've just lost our speaker. I've got her frozen in the screen on screen. So her computer has frozen. She'll be back shortly and we'll resume. I'm so sorry for the gremlins that we're having today. It's end of the year gremlins that have plagued us today. So my apologies. In the meantime, I hope you haven't missed the Christmas decor. We've gone to town with the Christmas decor today. So yeah, so that's quite good. By the way, where are you coming from, folks? Where are you watching us from at the moment? Do you think you could tell us? Would be interesting to know. I know that some of you are almost neighbours of me. Okay, here we are. Here's Emma. Excellent. Hello, Emma. I'll be back, folks. Excellent. You're back. Good.
I'm so sorry. I think we've had storms up here on the moor recently, and one here tonight. I just think it's a terrible connection.
That explains it. It's the storm then that we're picking up somehow on the storm.
Maybe.
But there you go. Such is life, hey? The spirits of Dartmoor. Cool. I was just having a chat with our audience, and here this Teresa from Gillingham in Dorset. Well, hello there. Hello, Dorset. Excellent. I know that Chrissy is just down the road from me, so that's great. Okay, we were talking about the sacred and ceremonial places, and you were saying that this was probably a ritualistic kind of monumental architecture. So over to you.
That's right. More research to be done on these places, hopefully, soon.
Absolutely.
So, as I mentioned, I was becoming very interested in the natural features and understanding again from other cultures that indigenous people in particular think of trees, and we have a lot of myth and folklore about trees in our culture. One of the stories about the faithless wives of Chagford rings the same bell, if you like, as a pilgrimage that happens today in France every 6 years from sacred site to sacred site, and in the centre is a sacred grove. So I think some of our places on Dartmoor potentially might have been sacred groves. There are, of course, these beautiful ancient trackways on Dartmoor, some of which are surrounded by trees, many are not, up on the high moor. And I've started to follow these ancient tracks. One of my favourite books that my grandfather wrote was Walking Dartmoor's Ancient Tracks. Some of them are well known, and they've been superimposed by modern routes, such as the Two Moors Way, and other ones have just fallen into disuse. And it's one of my ambitions to try and retrace as many as I can.
Sorry, just a question. Could you go back that side? Where is that photograph taken? Do you know?
Isn't it beautiful? It was taken. Do you know where Jay's grave is?
No.
Near Hamtor. Near Hamtor.
Yes.
There's it's an old holloway, this green lane, and it goes between Jay's grave and Knacksworthy.
That's beautiful. It really captures the atmosphere.
It was a very foggy day.
Of Dartmoor. Yes, it really captures that kind of mystical, mysterious atmosphere. It's a great photograph. So yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
So moving forward in time, I try to avoid, if I can, the really popular places and try and rediscover things that aren't so well known. So this is a very poor photograph, I'm sorry, but just next to this is the very well known and very well populated ruins of the medieval village at Hound Yes. And this is a second village right next door to it that's not in good condition, and very, very few people know about it because it's not on the map. So I went to discover it one day with my mother.
Absolutely, it's interesting, you know, because this is what I was saying about the crossover of things that we do. I deliberately avoid in my photography the beaten track. I deliberately go off the beaten track to find places to photograph, and I have, and also to take my customers for the workshops as you do in your wonderful guided tours. By the way, folks, I've been on Dartmoor's daughter one of the tours of the Stones in Maryvale, wasn't it?
That's right.
And it was absolutely fantastic. It really was amazing experience. And on Hound Tor, where we are now, this is the medieval village of Hound Tor, but is Hound Tor related to Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle?
That's a very good question. Conan Doyle travelled to Dartmoor many times, and he was said to walk up to 16 miles a day, and he got driven around in a coach as well. So he took inspiration from many sources on Dartmoor. Hound Tor, of course, is one of those sources for the Hound of the Baskervilles, but he's taken lots of different pieces and compiled them into his own version of a story.
Excellent, thank you. Yes.
So as I said, moving forward in time, that was a medieval village, and there's lots and lots of industrial remains on Dartmoor. And I'm not as interested in the industrial archaeology as I am in the prehistoric, but it is very interesting because it was such a worked landscape, such a manipulated landscape for so long. There's granite, which is great building material. There's tin and lead and copper, and so many different things to extract up here. This is the remains of the wheelwright stone next to the ruins of a blacksmith's shop up on Barn Hill near Pew Tor. So it's in very good condition, and it's so easy to walk past these artefacts and not know what they are. This is the same. This can be found on the track down to Holwell Quarry along the famous granite tramway near Hay Tor, and it's an old apple crusher used on the apple mill. So there are lots of these different artifacts. I won't name them all, but if you're interested, please get in touch or ask a question now if you'd like to know what they are.
Absolutely, folks. Do weave your questions and comments as we go along. We won't have quite a Q&A at the end because we try and avoid that. What we want is participation. So if you do have any questions, any comments, please just fire them away. I'll pull them in, and so that then we can share them. Let me just, while we're at it here, Chrissy Wallace. I'm from Cowstock, which is just down the road from where I am. Hi, Chrissy. Thank you for being here this evening. Cool. Over to you.
Thank you. So as well as the bigger artifacts, you can also see evidence of where people have worked the materials up here. So these just look like three little holes in a piece of granite, but in fact they're very regular, they're semicircular, and it indicates granite cutting, granite quarrying. So just seeing this on a walk and being able to share with people the history of the hundreds of men that were up here, hard at work in all weathers, quarrying granite, I think it really brings it to life. There are various inscriptions on various rocks that you can find. This is, sometimes the light has to catch in the right way to find them. This is up at Nestor and also Black Tor. And of course the remains of all sorts of buildings, not only the industrial archaeology, but also houses. This is a Victorian folly, ruins of a Victorian folly, which is quite fun, and there's some steps underneath it. You don't know where they go, but it could be quite fun to try and discover. This lovely building featured in one of Eden Philpott's novels, The Secret Woman, that he wrote in 1905, and it's up on Watchet Hill in Belston. And it's not very safe to go inside, so I wouldn't recommend it, but I did. And you can see the remains of how people lived, which I think is fascinating. The old fireplace. There's the bath. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
Rounded bit, someone's bath left there. Yeah. Nice view for a bathroom.
Fantastic. And I love that I love that fireplace with the details there, in a sort of Art Nouveau, arts and crafts, medieval revival. That is absolutely totally dates that artifact.
Oh yes, lovely. And of course they've got the lintel behind it, which might be even older.
Exactly. Yes. Wonderful.
Lovely. And then, as well as all of the different monuments and tours and the more obvious features, I started to become interested in the wildlife, flora and the fauna of Dartmoor, because really, although I'd known a few things and learned stuff as a child, being away for 20 years, I'd forgotten a lot of it. So when I came back, I started to discover all sorts of things that I don't think I knew before, and learn as much as I could. And I came across this tree one day. This is antler markings. It's where the stag come along and they try to rub the velvet off their antlers so they're ready to spar with each other.
Yes.
And there's all these wonderful things to come across. There's a stag wallow behind this enormous beech tree in the forest. That little puddle of water there is surrounded by droppings as well. So I didn't know this, I suppose, is what I'm saying. It's become a bit of a magical exploration of, rather than doing a route march across the moor and going as far and as fast as I can to try to discover the detail and the hidden gems of the region track.
Sorry, can you go back to that photograph again? That is a cracking photograph as well. That truly because in a way what we have in the background is the cultivated forest, the pine, but in the foreground we have the native species. I guess it's an oak, and it's absolutely fantastic. The light filtering through, it's absolutely beautiful. Where is that place again?
This is in Fernworthy.
Yes, Fernworthy. Yep. It's a magical place, the reservoir there. Over to you.
So really rediscovering and learning all of the different flora and fauna as much as I can, and watching them through the different cycles of their birth and death as well. That's on the top left. That's the larvae of a beetle. It's the first and last time I've ever seen one, so hopefully I'll see more in the future. But it looks like a big sort of duvet, a silvery black duvet. And then you've got next to that the fox moth caterpillar, which overwinters perhaps once, maybe twice, and then it turns into a beautiful caterpillar. So seeing these things through the different seasons, through their own seasons of life as well, I think is so fascinating. Lots of different birds that we have up here, of course. I'm not going to go all through these in detail, but there's just so much to see and explore and learn about. Lots of fungi, orchids. That photograph on the bottom left is a carnivorous plant that only reveals itself in the summer, the beautiful sundew.
Yeah.
You might just be able to see the droplets of sticky fluid that attract that insect in there on the left. Not a very happy insect, I would imagine. It would slowly be dissolved and eaten.
Digested food. Yeah, and this is so rare for this part of the world, carnivorous plants, because we associate those with the tropics, don't we? But to have them here is and my guess is that they're very fragile as well in terms of the environment. So we're dealing with an environment that is actually quite unspoiled, thank God.
Yes, it's an interesting concept, because on the one hand, it feels unspoiled because there's such a vastness to it. On the other hand, it's changed dramatically over a few thousand years. In the Bronze Age, when people were living up here, the climate was warm and dry, and there was a lot more trees, of course. And then through the ages, we've manipulated the landscape a lot with quarrying and mining. But what we are seeing now is nature taking back over. So it's an interesting concept about just how wild it really is.
Absolutely.
So with all of these sort of interests that have built up for me over time, what I love to do is to take people on walks which I describe as more immersive, more experiential. And I'm still learning all the time as well. So every day is a school day for me, but I do, for example, foraging walks through the year. I've just done some fungi walks today with a mycologist who's an expert in fungi, pack pony walks, wild swimming in beautiful places.
Indeed.
Some of which are known, and some of which aren't very well known.
Excellent.
So I can't tell you, otherwise I'd have to.
No, that's a top secret. Absolutely, totally trade secret. Absolutely.
I love to do mindfulness walks where we don't necessarily have all the social chit chat along the way, but I invite periods of silence where we walk together in silence, we really drink it all in along the way, invite our senses to come alive, maybe do a meditation as we sit down in somewhere beautiful. This is Blackator Copse, which is one of the ancient woodlands on Dartmoor, much less known than Whistling Wood, and I think just as beautiful, if not more.
Absolutely.
Archaeology walks.
Yeah.
I like to invite people not just to go to a place and talk about it, but in fact, this is a Fernworthy Stone Circle, so I invited people to go and explore the stone circle, walk around it, sit down, lie down for a period of time in silence, and to think, feel, imagine why it's here, what's the purpose, who built it, and then we share our experiences. People tell me what they've noticed, what they see about the patterns in the stones, and then I share all the different theories about these places. So it's much more of an experiential, I hope, approach.
Absolutely.
Dowsing, learning how to douse for earth energies or archaeology or water.
Yeah.
Making things with our hands. So I do children's events as well, where this was a Neolithic pinch pot replica, which is quite fun. We were sat in some hut circles.
Excellent.
At Merivale.
That's fun.
Yeah, great fun. And of course letterboxing, which is very famous on Dartmoor, begun by James Perrott in 1854. So hiding these little boxes with stamps in various places on the moor, usually the tools. But that's really a sort of snapshot, if you like, of all the different things that I love about this place. And of course it's got so much history that we're still living with today, the farming, the songs, the music, the folklore. So I'd be really interested if anyone has any questions or you have your own experiences perhaps you'd like to share.
Absolutely. Can I just say that when I joined your walk and what you were just saying about taking in the spirit of place and just being in silence and absorbing it, when I go on my landscape photography shoots, I go on my own. I work on my own. So I'm always there taking it in, and it's interesting that the moment that you actually stop that dialogue and there is you just open yourself and be more receptive to the space, to the place, that is when, in my practice, that is when things begin to happen. I begin to see things. Things begin to go in slow motion, and I can see things happening. And that's when the moment when I take my photography. And it's interesting because during your walks, you use a similar kind of technique to allow the audience, participants, to actually engage and make it in a truly immersive experience.
Thank you. Yes, I hope so. That's my intention. I think also because of my own background in becoming very unwell and ill with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. Mm-hmm. So as a young woman, I used to do everything as hard and as fast as I could. And really, the being in the present moment is so crucial for our physical health and our mental well-being. So I really want to invite others into that deeper experience of connection with our bodies, with each other, and with our land.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, because in terms of, again, within my practice, that is the moment that I try to photograph, is that connection with the landscape, and somehow, be it a bit of a cliche, but this connecting or capturing that feeling, because photography is for me has a lot to do with feelings and emotions and how you can actually communicate those. So it's interesting here again we have that crossover. That although you're doing guided walks, it's interesting how your ethos is very much along the same lines as the photographers. And certainly I know that the other photographers, Josephine Collingwood and Nikki Thompson, work in similar sort of ways. So yes, we've got a comment come in. From Teresa. I camp near Tavistock. on the edge of Pork Hill, and it's lovely to wake and hear nothing but the birds. Indeed, absolutely, yes. I couldn't agree more. It's that sounds of nature.
That's wonderful. Well done for doing that. I think it's some people aren't so brave about wild camping, and I'd really love to encourage people to do that. And also to mention, if I don't have expertise in a particular area, then I work with someone else who does. So in May every year, I do a dawn chorus walk with a gentleman from the RSPB. And it's absolutely fascinating. We walk out in the dark, we lie down in the forest, and we wait for the very first bird to start singing. We listen to the dawn chorus, and then he starts to point out all the different birds that are singing. So
Wonderful experience.
If you're interested in learning about the birds, then you might get what a rich experience.
Yeah, I can't wait to spring to start joining a few of your walks. I think, you know, they sound just the ticket for me. You know, it's exactly what I want. Definitely. So, what are your plans for when do your walks start in next year, Emma?
I'm
Roughly.
just trying to think. I haven't taken my winter break yet. I have a Boxing Day walk and a New Year's Day walk organised for a local hotel.
Yeah.
And then after that, I don't think they start until February, March. There's some navigation training walks. There's a spring foraging morning and other ones. But of course, I'm always open to doing one-to-one or bespoke days out for a group of friends or family. So I'll do that any time of year. It's just hard to get a lot of people to come walking with you in the winter. I don't know why. It's beautiful up there.
Yes, it's beautiful in winter. I mean, as long as you're well wrapped up, thin layers and lots of them, everything's
That's right.
Absolutely fine. You know, it's fine. It's nice to be in the crisp, cold air. And tell me, if people wanted to book a walk, what would they have to do?
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, the website address was on that last slide, so it's dartmoorsdaughter.com. All of the public walks go up on there. There's a calendar, and the bespoke days out. Also, there's availability on a separate page, and gift vouchers, of course, as well. If you wanted to get in touch and something doesn't work for you that's up on the website, then feel free to do that.
Excellent. That's absolutely great. Folks, please send in your comments or questions as we approach the end of our presentation today, of our in conversation today. Is there anything you'd like to add, Emma?
I'd like to say what a pleasure it is to be involved in this series with you, and I'm very grateful for the invitation. And it's lovely to connect with others who have a like-mindedness, you know, a
Exactly.
similar way of
Yeah.
not just using the moor and using it as a way, a place to do an activity, but to really have a felt sense of this beautiful place, the people here, the traditions and the history. So thank you.
Absolutely, yes, and I think that's the thing about because you see in my photography, I'm always interested, like you in the walks. I'm always interested in the context. Yes, it is beautiful. It's stunningly beautiful, and it's rich in history. But I'm also interested in the cultural context because it's been continuously inhabited since the Mesolithic. So you could look at 10,000 years of continuous habitation, human habitation on Dartmoor, used in different ways from the beginnings of farming with the Neolithic 5,000 odd years ago. And what I'm interested is in that heritage and if you want, the archaeology. And you mentioned the Bronze Age, the Neolithic, ritual, ceremonial and ritual places, but also the industrial heritage, the Victorian heritage, the granite, the mines, and so on, which is absolutely fascinating. I think that is what makes it interesting, because there were others before us, long before us.
I agree.
Excellent. Any other questions, folks? No? very, very quiet today. Cool. Emma, thank you so much for being here today. It's been absolutely, absolutely great. Thank you so much indeed. I would love to invite you again in spring or summer next year. I think it would be brilliant to actually, and you know what I would like to do is do a bit of a live broadcast from on location. I'd like to give that a whirl, because that could. I think exactly. I think that could be fun, even if it's not broadcast live. Then to actually do a quick video similar to the ones that you already do, but then put that up. I think that would be really interesting to give this conversation a broader context.
That would be a nicer background than this as well.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Emma, and on that note, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. You have a great weekend, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you to you too, and everybody that's joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye for now. Excellent, folks. Well, that was amazing. We were so lucky to have Emma. What I'm amazed is Emma is, her knowledge of Dartmoor is that of almost an encyclopedic knowledge. It's so broad and so deep, with the advantage of having that generational input from, well, a number of generations behind, and her family, members of her family that actually were authors and were doing something similar to what she does today, looking at Dartmoor as an incredible place of interest, which it is. As you know, it's the 70th anniversary of Dartmoor, 1951, 1921, yes, so it's a really important year for Dartmoor. Folks, thank you so much for being here. I'm delighted that you were being here. My apologies for the gremlins, but that was the storm, the weather conditions on Dartmoor. Emma lives in well, she said in Changford, which is actually in the heart of Dartmoor. And the weather was actually causing a bit of interference and causing a bit of gremlins. But hey ho, that's nature, so we have to live with it. Okay. Once again, thank you for being here. We'll be back next year. I wish you a Merry Christmas and all the best for the new year. From me, bye for now. Take care. Thank you.